Shadow of the Erdtree is out and is quite possibly the best DLC From Software has made, and I'm completely unsurprised. If it was anything less, I would have been more shocked. Anyway, there's a boatload of both new and returning bosses, as well as a mix of both, and I'll be ranking only the new and newish stuff. No NPC invader type bosses included for the most part. I might have to make a couple exceptions. Tiers from awful up to amazing as per usual, trigger warning for based opinions, and let's begin. One thing before the DLC I was praying for day and night is that we wouldn't get more dragons and Erdtree avatars. Lucked out on one, not so much the other. Jagged peak dragons are the very same as the first one you face in Limgrave, except it has some added lightning effects. This combo might be new as well, maybe, I don't know. Either way, they do little to change how fundamentally soul-drainingly boring this dragon template is. I actually kind of liked the Limgrave dragon the first time I fought it. Then I fought it again, and again. And oh my god, I want to kill myself if I ever hear that music one more time. Oh, and in case anyone wonders, I did not include Ancient Dragon Sex, because moveset-wise it's got nothing new. Though it being located near water extends the reach of the lightning in a very annoying and bullshit way. But it's worth mentioning because I believe this is the worst fight in the entire DLC. It sucks all the dicks. I'll give the Lamenter two minor positives. One, I like that it gets built up a little in the preceding dungeon. Two, it's unique enough that despite my no NPC boss rule he made it through. And he looks like the goat from Pan's Labyrinth. I like that movie. Positives come to a screeching halt when it comes to combat though. On his own, he's pathetic, in a group of his own clones he's also pathetic, and he takes massive timeouts while summoning them. All I can say in its favor is that it's nice to have a visual build-up on the whatever curse the clones are doing to you. It's not a bar in the interface, but an actual thing you can see building up in-game. That's good, but I wish they used it on something other than the Lamenter. Shadowkeep is an incredible level and I would much rather discuss it than the boss guarding its front entrance. But that's the subject of this video, so let's talk about the Hippopotato. It fucking sucks, I fucking hate it. Okay, it's a mediocre boss, moveset-wise. It's not the second coming of Bed of Chaos or anything. You have slow bite attacks and slams in phase 1, then suddenly Quill Rain in phase 2. Visually kind of neat to mix a Quillboar and a Hippo, but I think the unnecessarily confined space puts a dampener on your enjoyment of looking at the boss. I also felt it didn't help to put the lock-on point of the boss in the center of their body, when the head is half of the entire beast. And it's extended forward. The real struggle was just being able to see clearly. To circumvent this, you'd best keep your distance outside of the punish windows. So if you really enjoy the fight otherwise, you can work around the external problems. But I don't enjoy the fight, I find it boring and annoying. Also the grab sucks, or chews, but I hear they nerfed it, so maybe not so much anymore. Chief Bloodfiend is the most mediocre boss that I've been happy to see. When I entered this cave it seemed like just another wolf den, but once you drop down deeper you suddenly uncover a blood-worshipping cult headed by their chief, who is an extremely middling boss with nothing interesting to offer besides reminding me of a better boss with his Bloodflame claw swipe. But it's entirely unique to just this one cave, and that makes me happy. This is how I would have liked all the caves and dungeons in the base game to be. I don't care if the fight is as bland as this, as long as it's something new to discover. I decided to lump both bossified Black Knights to the spot because both are just regular enemies with one little extra ability. Knight Edred gets a cool spinning blade slash, while Knight Garou gets a... tongue? What the fuck? He licks you? That's his boss-specific ability? Alright then. But both of these guys are whatever, inoffensive, and a tiny bit enjoyable. One's fun to backstab, the other is just funny to look at, and to be licked by. Fun fact about Garou, he was actually the very last boss in the DLC that I beat, making him the true final boss of Elden Ring entire. Forget Radahn and Miquella, Freaky Licker is the true finale. Like the Black Knights, Curseblade Labirith might be stretching the definition of a boss. It's 80% just a regular enemy encountered all throughout the Land of Shadow. That 20% is the Shadow gimmick. He can cover the room in darkness and use it to his advantage with ambush attacks. Equipping a lantern or a torch helps a little bit, but mostly I relied on just the sound, and it works surprisingly well. And I think it's a decent gimmick all things considered, and the base moveset of these guys is pretty solid on top of that. As bored of the Elden Ring dragons as I may be, even I cannot deny that the changes made with the Ghostflame Dragons are refreshing enough to get a pass. Their storms demand more attention this time around with Ghostflame AoEs, they have a couple new flame breath attacks, new combos, and in general they're more aggressive and don't seem to be suffering from arthritis, unlike the rest of the dragons. Unfortunately, 2 out of 3 of the Ghostflame encounters are duds. First one by the pond is good, it's just a lone dragon in a wide field. Second time around there's a huge battle going on, but it's more fun to watch than to participate. And the third one by the Cerulean coast can bring in a skeleton army, which doesn't really add anything. It's pointless to fight them, just let the dragon kill them. Still, in a vacuum the Ghostflame Dragons are decent. If they really went all out and made Jori or Jori a Remembrance tier boss, they could have cooked something really tasty, because I see some good ideas buried under a heap of mid. I like how the clones aren't just senselessly ganking you, but rather function as attacks and disappear once they've done their thing. But you can also hasten their disappearance on your own, like I always would with the Women of Size. And the spells of Jori are actually kinda neat. You can sideways run from some of them, jump over others, or cancel them with backstabs. It's a shame it's such a brief encounter that will quickly be overshadowed by the following area. The Red Bears did the impossible. They made me enjoy fighting giant bears in Elden Ring. These were some of my least favorite enemies in the entire game. They were unbelievably annoying. See, I didn't go for that pun, I'm better than that. But the Red Bears are pretty fun. They have Godfrey Grounder options, Wind Claw swipes, and most alarmingly, gamer words.
May I please have the water? Please?
Gay Ass is easily the worst Remembrance boss, if he even really deserves that title. My speculation is that this was originally supposed to be just a mini-boss, but they gave it a Remembrance for the sake of marketing so they could say that there's 10 Remembrance bosses. He's the one and only Remembrance that doesn't have a unique soundtrack in the entire game. It's just reusing a mini-boss track from the base game. I would liken him to a less good Tree Sentinel with some wannabe Radahn elements. Nothing really bad, just nothing very good either. Though I did really hate his charge at first. I feel it's nigh impossible to dodge on foot if he starts it from afar. But you can just use Torrent to outrun it, and up close it's way easier to iframe. I wish I could say something more positive about him, but my reaction to most of his moves is just indifference. His long combo is alright. It requires timing. The Gravity Lance Poke is also not bad. Gravity Charge is very okay. The Kick is actually a pretty good addition. Makes you have to pay a little more attention to your position. Keeps you off his gay ass. Demi-human Swordmaster Onze is a joke boss, but the joke is that he's actually kind of good. And since he's actually kind of good, he makes it kind of far in this ranking. Obviously when we compare him to the likes of Messmer or Bayle, vile Bayle, he doesn't come close. But for a mini-boss, he was a joy to witness. He's half a Sekiro boss too, with his ability to deflect and counterattack, as well as having Ishin's one mind. His only problem is that he's very squishy. I had to actively try not to kill him first try because I wanted to see more of him. It would have been even funnier if they made him actually difficult. Fuck it, make him harder than Malenia, because in my mind, lore-wise he would 100% beat Malenia in a duel, not even close. Metyr the Mother of Fingers is a social experiment to see what happens when you jam back a boss with as much bad as you do good. Cool attacks, shitty attacks, beautiful arena, awful borders in said arena, good music at first, but then the music just leaves the fight. But let's talk about the worst of the worst, which is when she summons a black hole with rotating lasers that sweep the entire vicinity. I kind of regret making the best and worst attacks video right before the DLC now. This would definitely have made it to the worst attacks list. It does look awesome, so it also would have taken a spot in the coolest abilities list. But all the effort was seemingly put in making it look cool rather than play well. The first rotation of the laser is, as far as I know, completely undodgeable without the use of bullshit like Bloodhound Step. I think the only reason the entire Souls community isn't in uproar about this is because the rest of the fight is somewhat easy. And the appeal of the boss isn't even the fight itself, it's what this thing is, where it is, why it is. I'll tell you right now, it's because while Miyazaki has a food fetish, George R.R. Martin must have a finger fetish. And she ties in with the whole motherhood theme they've gone with in this DLC, as well as having major implications for the grander story. And I do like some of her attacks, like the non-black hole lasers, exploding orbs and detonating the ground in front of her. But for that rotating nonsense, I'll give the fucking finger. When I heard there's a Scadutree Avatar in this DLC, my mind went to dark, dark places. But then it turns out it's just a flower. But a very cool flower at that, with clean, simple attacks that are well telegraphed and fair. The thorns are a nice area denial effect. I wish the boss had more melee attacks and combos so they could do a little more with them. For a 3-phase fight, there isn't much of an evolution here either. Second phase only introduces a triple charge attack and, like, one follow-up to an existing attack. And then the final phase brings only a single move, an explosion. But that attack is really fun, especially when it does it multiple times in a row. What's cool is that you don't dodge the explosion, you dodge the projectiles that it sends out. The explosion is actually the indicator for when to press dodge. There's a lot of explosion phase transitions in this DLC, but this one remains my favorite. These knights are as close to a Godwyn fight as we got in this DLC, sorry to say. If we were to actually fight Godwyn, I would have expected it to be a lot like the Scadutree Avatar. I wouldn't be entirely shocked if very early on it was supposed to be him, but they reskinned him into a flower. Don't quote me on that though, unless it turns out I'm right. Then quote me on it. But Death Knights are cool, particularly the dual axe one. I enjoy quick swings like this where iframing won't get you through it all. You need to dance around the boss to avoid being hit. That's something we'll see more of when it comes to dual-wielding bosses in this DLC. And that's why the Great Axe Death Knight on his own would be like a C-tier fight. He's lucky I lumped him in with the other Death Knight. Their most notable attacks are of course the lightning abilities, there's massive AoEs, charges, Zeus-esque throwing abilities, and soaring attacks. All very fun and flashy. But the best part is just the fact that these are unique dungeon encounters. I don't really care about getting another Spirit Ash I will never use or a weapon I won't use. The real reward for me is a fun fight that you won't get anywhere else. The Putrescent Knight is like a chubby orphan of Kos with a blob head riding a horse that's melting. Some of the boss designs in this DLC are just plain weird, but I kinda appreciate that. They still keep finding ways to keep the boss designs varied. I mean, look at Dark Souls 3 where most bosses were guy with flaming sword, and then look at Slimy Orphan of Kos riding a melting horse. Though I'm not gonna award them points for the originality of the arena. I feel like I've seen something very similar somewhere else. As for the fight, I like dodging that cleaver of his. It's got really weighty animations and sounds. Pretty simple combos, but some enjoyment is to be found from finding different ways to punish them, like jumping over low swings with a landing strike or hugging the boss. Jumping is further encouraged with the blue flames in phase 2, and I always appreciate when fights take advantage of that mechanic. The biggest tease in this fight was when the knight jumps off the horse and the two of them do an entire dance number together, because at first I thought they were going to do an actual synchronized gang fight and redeem themselves for the lack of any good ones in the main game, but it's just that one attack. Still a cool attack. Nothing to complain about with this boss, I just think they could have gone a little harder. Once again, we're up against a foe unlike any other in the entire game, a scorpion centipede woman with pink butterflies fluttering around. How cute! Though once again, I don't know if they playtested her ultimate attack, which starts with 0 warning and covers a large area around her. If you're too close to her when she starts it, you're just not going to be able to dodge it. But it's not a big deal since it does little damage and happens at a certain HP threshold, so you can kinda prepare for it. I like Romina overall. She has clean attacks that require good positioning and or timing, such as her roll attack that you need to either run from or get closer to avoid her double attack from the centipede plus halberd. It's like a less retarded Godskin Noble roll. Other examples would be triple attack from the centipede that requires extremely precise dodge timings, and her jump slam that has straight up a whoa-long red flash indicator for the timing. She's cool and fun, but I feel once again it's a little bit on the simpler side for a DLC Remembrance fight. Not much in the way of combo alterations or distance-based mix-ups, though she does have some, and that's good. But I feel she could have used something more. Maybe more butterfly explosions on her basic attacks in phase 2, something like that. Because this boss and all the previous bosses so far are still less complex than Margit the Fell Omen, and that's the first boss in the base game. I don't know if the backlash from whiny people made them scale back the challenge or if they just didn't have time to flesh them out, but I'm missing that bite from these guys. They're all cock and no cum, but luckily for her, I do like cock as well. It's arguable whether or not this is really a boss fight, but I feel it deserves a nod, a special commendation for being, without a doubt, the best NPC invader fight in the series, or really the only one that isn't shit. It puts to shame Gideon, who serves a similar role. He would have the abilities of many of the bosses you've faced, thus calling back to your entire journey. Well, that was the intention anyway, but in reality all it does is piss you the fuck off. Whereas a Knight Leda's encounter will call back on all your interactions with the various characters in the Land of Shadow, completing many quest lines at the same time. Depending on what quests you've done or things you've said to characters, you may have them as either adversaries or allies, or neither. It's especially heart-wrenching to have to kill more. I kinda rushed through the DLC on my first 2 characters and only ended up being able to summon a character I don't even know. Who the fuck is this? But that's on me, I still get what the point was, and I like the point. No matter what, it will add a bittersweet sting to the conclusion of your journey. Looks like we're continuing our theme of unique boss designs. Divine Beast Dancing Lion is 2 dudes inside a costume, using the costume as a weapon, while shifting between different elements like a Team Ninja final boss. It's great, it's wonderful. It lives up to its name of being a dancing lion when the elemental shifts are timed with the music, and the music is a joy. I had major problems getting into the flow of the dance for a variety of reasons. 1. Skill issue. 2. Frame drops. 3. Camera and visibility issues. Even now I sometimes have trouble reading the boss's movement when all I see is robes. Lightning being able to hit you off camera, also not great. And the direct breath attack up close, seemingly undodgeable, at least to my skill level. However, if you just stand back a bit, let the guys do their dance, and only go for clear punish windows, it's manageable. And I enjoy that more because I get a better view of the boss, while stuff like the lightning and ice is more comfortable to avoid. Thanks to the various elements, the second phase is nicely varied. With lightning you gotta pay more attention to your surroundings, wind adds bigger hitboxes so you've gotta be more precise on your dodge timings, and ice punishes bad positioning with icicles erupting around the boss. But the most badass and cool attack in the game is when the Lion Dancer shifts through all 3 elements in a single combo. Definitely would be somewhere in the best attacks list. And also, let's just ignore the Deathblight variant, it's not worth talking about. Midra is about as far as amazing presentation can take an otherwise ordinary fight. You travel through some godforsaken woods, enter a haunted house, all while being told to turn the fuck around, and then slaughter an old man with a thorny sword stuck inside his entire body, which he'll then pull out, decapitating himself and turning into the Lord of Frenzied Flame. As fucked up and weird as all this was, I was very pleased to finally get a Frenzied Flame boss. It seemed like an underutilized element in the base game, but Midra utilizes it to the nth degree. It's just a very fun fight, that's all. But I do have to say I feel there's a lack of madness and chaos. Everything else screams chaos, the music, the visuals, but moveset-wise he's anything but chaotic. He's very rhythmic, slow, methodical, predictable. Maybe I'm in the minority, but I again would have liked them to go a little more wild with the fight. Don't get me wrong, I don't want more waterfall dance. I don't even care about the difficulty that much. Like, Morgoth is one of my favorites, and he's easy as fuck, but damn do I never get tired of his moveset. Midra just isn't that varied. I feel bad criticizing the fight because I do kind of love it still, for its atmosphere, music, looks, and it is just fun. If you don't care as much about the longevity of a boss's moveset, Midra is a fantastic experience. But personally, I will leave the amazing tier for the fights that will have that longevity. And those are the last 4 fights on this list. If you thought the build-up to Midra was great, Bayle the Dread might have even him beat, with the entire journey up the mountain being dedicated to facing him down. But along your journey you'll come across a fellow named Egon, who in no time at all has become an icon, a meme, and a beloved character. He's basically Captain Ahab from Moby Dick, but Moby Dick in this case is a giant fucking dragon with Morg's face. Although I hate fighting the dragon with a summon, it is a requirement to at least summon him once or twice to hear his dialogue where he goes, "Fuck you, Bayle! You motherfucker!" Curse you! You whore!
With a hail of harpoons! With every last drop of my being!
Oh, it's beautiful. Harpoons! It's especially funny because, really, to Bayle, we're just insects. He walked over an anthill and now 2 ants have come after him, swearing personal vendetta. But as for the fight, it makes it to the amazing tier because they might just have finally outdone Metyr. It only took them about 50 attempts to get another really good dragon fight. Like with Metyr, you gotta go for the head, and I think they balanced his punish windows perfectly. As long as you know where his head is gonna be by the end of his attack, you can most likely hit it if you're fast. And while I spent a good portion of the fight looking at the insides of the dragon, I do think the camera is a lot better than it was for Metyr, where the lock-on would constantly break. He's even kind enough to jump back if he gets too close to a wall. But I think the best part is how spectacle and gameplay are in equal focus. Bayle flying around the arena, shooting fireballs at you that you have to run sideways to dodge, before landing back like an airplane, is both amazing to look at and engaging to dodge. Yet another to add to my best attacks list. He also has Placidus X nuke that you can somehow fucking jump over. Why didn't people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki just jump over the nukes? I'm sorry, that was in bad taste, but I'm still keeping it in. Plus there's ground eruption following a drop-down slam, lots of lightning, and his most dangerous move where he flies around breathing exploding fire. None of these are just for show, they're also good gameplay. I love Bayle the Dread almost as much as Egon hates him. I don't think I ever would have guessed that the final boss of the DLC, aside from the freaky liquor, would be Radahn, remade out of Morg's remains. How Migala managed to get Morg's face to look like this, I don't know, but damn was I excited to get to fight Radahn with his wits about him. Though whether he's really a willing participant in Migala's machinations is ambiguous. It did at first feel a little fanfiction-y and looked like a modded boss, but I think I'm overall okay with it. Radahn retains the same fighting style, but with a little bit of Godfrey and Morg mixed in there. Mixed in there is also one of the worst attacks From Software has ever made, his double slash into crossed swords. If you dodge the first strike, you're gonna get roll caught by the second, unless you're already at an ideal position, use Ash of War trickery or get lucky with the elevation of the ground helping you out. In my case, I just used the Sekiro Deflect mixed physique. But with mid-roll, you're not going to be able to consistently dodge it. They already nerfed it a little bit so that the second strike won't stun lock you into the third, but they're yet to make it actually dodgeable, which is the issue. It's a shame it's still present in Phase 2 where Miquella is cosplaying Zaraj, because otherwise they made something really special here. Most of Radahn's strikes will now have light pillars following along their trajectory, making you have to dodge along with his swings rather than through them like I'm used to. By far the best addition is the clones, even though on my first 2 playthroughs they did 0 damage to me, but that's been fixed. All except the sideways dash will require to move either to the side, through him, or away from him. The clones following his homing rocks do require enough space in the arena, which won't always be possible. They don't hurt a whole lot, so it's only really an issue for no damage runs, which I did 4 times because I really wanted to have this fight click with me, and while I do love it, it's yet to fully sync with me. It has some of the highest peaks of any fight, amazing music, but also some bullshit. Some bugs, a lot of trial and error, and when he isn't cloning around, those peaks aren't quite there. It's an uneven mess, and still a very good boss. And it's also the hardest boss in the DLC, so I definitely got my challenge fix. People already could never spell Rellana's name right, and now FromSoft has dropped this. Rellana. Which people also can't spell right. Are they actually trolling at this point? Okay, anyway, the fight. This is the best fight in the DLC. There you have it. She's super quick, has double strikes you need good positioning to avoid, but aren't bullshit like Radahn's double slash. She has an incredible amount of different combo mix-ups, some based on your position to her, your distance to her, and some mix-ups having their own mix-ups on top of that, in addition to having magic and Messmer added to them in her second phase. And I like that she has a few different options for how she starts these combos. Either she does it after sidestepping, or after raising both swords in quick slashes, or after doing a thrust attack. Since you can never know what she does next, all you can really do is react. And those are the types of fights I enjoy the most. In addition, lots of attacks you can jump over, one that practically forces it, the one where she moons at you. That is a giant butt. She's like Melania without Waterfowl Dance, basically. That's all I ever wanted. Though as I am a senile old man, I do have trouble reacting to some of her quick attacks. Are they actually unreasonably fast? Probably not, probably just a skill issue. Floating swords above her head, not my favorite thing ever either. They kinda just discourage aggression while they're active. But these are nitpicks, I really think this is in the top 5 best FromSoft movesets for a boss. The biggest glaring lackluster element here is the complete lack of presentation. She's found in a Career Manor rip-off castle, and the vault gate leading to her isn't even at the end of a grand hall or top of the stairs, no, it's just a side room. I was honestly expecting to get Red Wolf of Radahn here, not one of the best bosses in the game. Don't get me wrong, the music is good and the attacks look cool. It's just that there's no build-up to her at all, she's just standing there, ready to aggro to you. Gameplay is the most important thing for me, so this doesn't ruin it or anything, but I can't say she's the perfect package when Messmer exists. Messmer the Impaler's fight doesn't have as good of a spectacle as Bayle, but what does? However, the snake attacks in Phase 2 come close. His difficulty is also not on the scale of promised Consort Radahn, but I still got my share of 18 inches of Messmer for a good while. And while no boss can rival the sheer number of mix-ups and flexibility of Rellana's moveset, Messmer's is still top-notch. He can change his attacks into far-reaching pokes if you get too far from him, so you're never safe from his 18 inches. He's more predictable in Phase 2, but I don't even mind it because of how cool and purely fun it is. I've talked a lot about good and bad attacks in this video. Messmer doesn't have a single bad mechanic, but he does have my new favorite 2 attacks in this game. One I'm talking about is Messmer's Assault, which to me feels like Waterfowl Dance done right, where while flashy and challenging, you can tell what's going on and what to do differently when you fail. And in Phase 2 he has an even cooler attack where giant snakes attack one after another, finished off by either erupting spears or a giant explosion. This one feels more like a better Melania clone move, where once again I could tell what was happening. So sure, he's not the best in any of the aspects I mentioned, spectacle, challenge, moveset, but he isn't lacking in any department, and most of all, I think he is a perfectly executed boss for what they were going for. With only one encounter in a single DLC to tell his story, they did everything they could. Just from his moveset and cutscenes you get what he's all about. You get a taste of the signature move of the Crusades, some mummy issues, lots of Messmer fire and impaling, his acceptance of his own oblivion, and his awful tapeworm affliction. Basically, he was used, discarded, and fucked over, all because of his mother. This is one of the few times when I felt something other than, woohoo, I beat it, when I killed the boss. Him finally cursing his mother was the perfect wrap-up.
America, a curse upon thee.
So, that might have been a safe choice for number 1, but I could see things changing over time. Maybe eventually Rellana's moveset alone will take her to the top, and maybe if they fix Radahn he'll take the top spot. Only time will tell, but overall I think the bosses did deliver. I was at first a little disappointed that none were significantly harder or more complex than the base game fights, but with 4 top tier bosses and a handful of good and great ones, I can't really complain. For my next video I have lots of ideas. I could either rank the new areas, all the Remembrance bosses including base game, rank all the DLCs, and all the Souls games. Let me know what interests you the most, what you thought of the DLC and its bosses, this video, and thanks for watching. See ya, Marigas.